The human ship descended slowly toward Zetheria's capital world. Its silver hull reflected the bright light of the system's twin suns. Inside, Ethan Carter sat quietly in the observation deck, staring at the vast city below. He could see towers rising far above the clouds, hovering platforms gliding between them, and lights that blinked like stars. Zetheria was beautiful, alien, and intimidating. Ethan adjusted his uniform, smoothing the wrinkles in his jacket. Humans had traveled far, but this was unlike anything he had ever seen. His mission was clear: negotiate a trade treaty to secure rare energy crystals for Earth. But the real challenge, he knew, was the people he would meet, the Zetherians, especially their young princess, Leirana. He had heard stories about her. Only 21, but already ruthless in politics, sharp-tongued, and proud. She saw herself above most species in the galaxy, especially humans. Ethan did not flinch at that thought. He had been trained to remain calm, to observe before acting. Words could hurt, but patience and intelligence could achieve far more. The ship landed on a wide landing platform above the floating city. As the airlock opened, a rush of cool, filtered wind greeted him. He stepped out, taking in the alien architecture. Towers curved in impossible shapes, bridges of glowing material stretched across the sky, and vehicles hovered silently above. The Zetherians themselves were tall and elegant, with smooth, iridescent skin that shimmered in the light. Their eyes glowed faintly, reflecting intelligence and power. A group of attendants approached, bowing slightly. "Welcome, human diplomat," one said in a melodic, precise voice. "Princess Leirana awaits your arrival in the palace." Ethan nodded. "Thank you. Please lead the way." They moved swiftly, gliding along moving pathways. Ethan noted the efficiency and order of everything. No one seemed rushed, but everyone moved as if part of a well-oiled machine. He wondered how such a society maintained balance with so many advanced technologies and complex systems. Finally, they arrived at the palace. It was enormous, made of a crystal-like material that reflected the sky and clouds. Its towers seemed to touch the stars, and massive doors opened silently to welcome him. Inside, the air smelled faintly of ozone and something sweet he could not identify. The corridors glowed softly, lit by energy streams embedded in the walls. At the center of the grand hall stood Princess Leirana. She wore a robe of silver and deep blue, adorned with intricate patterns that seemed alive, shifting with her movements. Her eyes, glowing brighter than the attendants, fixed on Ethan with curiosity and disdain. "You are the human?" she asked, her voice cool and deliberate. Ethan bowed slightly, keeping his expression neutral. "Yes, Your Highness. I am Ethan Carter, representing the United Earth Coalition." Leirana tilted her head, studying him. "I expected something different. You are so small, and your clothes primitive. Do all humans dress like this?" Ethan felt a moment of irritation, but he said nothing. Instead, he observed her carefully. Her posture was proud, almost too deliberate. Her words were sharp, but she spoke from a place of expectation rather than knowledge. "Your Highness," he said calmly, "humans are not defined by clothing or height. We are defined by our actions." Leirana laughed lightly, a sound that echoed in the grand hall. "Actions? You have traveled across the stars in that ship? And you think that proves action?" Ethan remained silent, letting her words hang. He noticed the subtle movements of her attendants, the slight tension in their bodies as they watched him. Even the princess had cracks in her perfect composure. The palace attendants gestured for Ethan to follow. He walked beside Leirana, noting the small details. Security devices hidden in plain sight, energy fields that seemed to hum with power, and the quiet elegance of the Zetherian guards. Everything was designed to impress and intimidate. They arrived, at a room filled with holographic displays of planets, star systems, and trade routes. Lyrana gestured for him to sit. "Your mission is clear," she said, her voice firm. "You are here to negotiate for our energy crystals. Humans need them, but Zytheria holds them. Why should I even consider your request?" Ethan took a seat. His posture relaxed. "Your Highness, humans seek partnership, not just resources. We believe in fair trade, mutual benefit. We do not come to demand, only to propose a partnership that strengthens both our worlds." Lyrana raised an eyebrow. "Partnership? Ha! Humans are clever at words, but words mean little without power. Tell me, human, what makes you think your species is worthy?" Ethan paused. He could feel the tension in the room, the weight of centuries, of pride and tradition in her gaze. He did not respond immediately. Instead, he studied her expression, noting how she tried to provoke him. He knew she wanted anger, wanted him to respond with emotion. That was weakness on her part. "Finally," he spoke, voice calm but firm. "Humans are worthy because we survive, adapt, and innovate. We face challenges that would break many others, and when insulted, we do not retaliate with the same words. We act, and our actions speak louder than any insult." For a moment, Lyrana said nothing. She blinked, as if surprised by his composure. The attendants shifted nervously. Ethan remained steady, his eyes meeting hers without fear. "You are bold," she said finally. "Most species would have cowered or argued. Most humans would have shouted or stormed out. Yet here you sit, quiet, unmoved, curious." Ethan inclined, his head slightly. "Sometimes, silence is the most powerful response, Your Highness, and observation often reveals more than words ever could." Lyrana studied him longer than seemed polite, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we were told," she murmured, almost to herself. The rest of the day passed with careful discussion, observation, and minimal conversation. Ethan was introduced to other Zytherian officials, each more polite than the last, but still carrying subtle airs of superiority. Every question he answered with precision, every move deliberate. He refused to engage in petty arguments, instead taking mental notes about Zytherian trade systems, politics, and culture. By evening, Lyrana led him to a balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows across the towers. Hovering vehicles glided past like fireflies, and the air shimmered with faint energy currents. "You humans are strange," Lyrana said softly, almost curiously. "You do not react as others do. You are calm, yet I can feel something beneath that. Strength, maybe, or patience." Ethan looked at her calmly. "Humans understand that appearances can be deceiving. Strength is not always shown through anger or pride. Often it is quiet, careful, and deliberate." Lyrana studied him for a long moment, then turned away, her expression unreadable. Ethan could sense that he had unsettled her, not through force, but through calm observation and quiet confidence. That night, in his quarters aboard the human ship, Ethan reviewed his notes. Zytheria was proud, advanced, and arrogant. Princess Lyrana was intelligent, cunning, and sharp-tongued. But every insult, every glance of disdain, only reinforced his resolve. Humans did not need to shout or fight to earn respect. They would earn it through action. He leaned back, looking out at the glowing city below. The challenge had begun. And in the quiet of the night, Ethan knew one thing clearly. Underestimating humans was Zytheria's first mistake. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The next morning, the sky above Zytheria glowed with pale blue light as twin suns climbed higher. Ethan Carter stepped onto the palace terrace, feeling the gentle hum of energy currents in the air. The city below pulsed with life. Hovering vehicles moved like schools of glowing fish, and towers shimmered in the early sunlight. Today, the humans' true challenge awaited. The royal ceremony. Princess Lyrana appeared, her robe of silver and deep blue flowing around her, her glowing eyes fixed on Ethan as he approached. There was a faint smirk on her lips, one that promised trouble. "Human," she said, her voice cold but musical. "Today you will see how Zytheria honors its traditions. Perhaps you will learn that words are meaningless without status." Ethan nodded politely. "I look forward to understanding your culture, Your Highness." The palace attendants led them into a vast hall. The ceilings stretched impossibly high, filled with floating lights that moved in slow, mesmerizing patterns. Nobles from across Zytheria gathered, their iridescent skins shimmering in different shades. They watched Ethan as he entered, curiosity mixed with judgment. Lyrana's voice rang out, addressing the assembly. "Today, we honor the beings who contribute to our world, our trade, and our culture. Among us is a human who comes seeking our energy crystals. Let us see if he is worthy of attention." A murmur ran through the crowd. The nobles expected Ethan to stumble under the scrutiny, to shrink before their pride. They did not know him. Ethan stood tall, keeping his composure. He did not bow, did not show fear. He simply observed. His eyes moved across the crowd, noting small details, patterns in the nobles' attire, energy devices subtly attached to their robes, and the way they whispered to one another. Nothing escaped him. Princess Lyrana turned back to him. "Tell me, human, what makes you think humans deserve to negotiate with Zytheria? You are fragile, inexperienced, and your culture is young." The hall fell silent, waiting for his response. Some nobles stifled laughter. Ethan did not react immediately. He studied her expression, noting the mixture of curiosity and condescension. Finally, he spoke, calm and measured. "Your Highness, humans survive where others would fail. We adapt, learn, and innovate. Fragile bodies do not define weakness. Intelligence, determination, and action do." A few nobles whispered among themselves, surprised at his courage. Lyrana's eyes narrowed slightly. She had expected anger, embarrassment, or retreat. Instead, he remained steady, a human calm that unsettled the court. The ceremony continued. Lyrana showcased Zytheria's trade achievements, cultural feats, and military power. At each moment, she subtly compared humans to Zytherians, highlighting what she saw as their deficiencies. Ethan listened and observed. Each insult, each sneer only added to his mental picture of the Zytherian culture. He noticed patterns others might miss. The nobles' reliance on elaborate devices revealed overconfidence. Their pride often made them predictable. Their culture valued ceremony over efficiency. To the untrained eye, Zytheria was perfect. To Ethan, it had weaknesses, small, subtle, but present. During the feast, Lyrana leaned toward him and whispered, her voice like ice. "I must admit, human, you endure much. Most would have stormed out or argued by now. Do your people lack pride?" Ethan looked at her calmly. "Our pride is different, Your Highness. It is quiet, measured, and shown through action rather than words. We do not need to respond to every insult. We choose our battles carefully." She studied him, intrigued despite herself. "Humph, clever words. But clever words are not enough to survive in the galaxy. I wonder, do you understand what it means to negotiate with strength?" "I understand," Ethan replied simply. "Strength is not only in force. It is in patience, observation, and knowing when to act." The princess blinked. For a moment, she seemed caught off guard. Ethan's calmness and intelligence were unlike anything she had expected. No other species had faced her with such composure, without fear or arrogance. After the feast, the assembly moved to a platform overlooking the city. Floating holograms displayed trade routes, energy reserves, and resources across Zetheria's territory. Lyrana used the moment to further mock humans. "Look at these trade routes," she said, pointing to the glowing lines. "Zetheria controls these with precision. Humans, in comparison, barely manage one planet. Your people are scattered, weak, and inefficient." Ethan observed quietly, noting patterns in the energy flows and trade efficiency. He saw opportunities where humans could negotiate, where influence could be gained without confrontation. "You underestimate humans," he said, softly. "Size and efficiency do not always measure strength. Innovation, adaptability, and resolve often matter more." A ripple of surprise ran through the nobles. Lyrana's eyes flashed. She was both offended and fascinated. No human had ever dared contradict her in such a setting, much less with composure. Later, as the assembly dispersed, Lyrana called Ethan aside. "You are unlike any human I have heard of. You do not respond as others do, yet you speak with wisdom. Tell me, why are you so calm in the face of insult?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Because responding to every insult weakens the mind and the mission. Humans act with purpose. Words are secondary. Actions define us, not appearances or mockery." For a long moment, Lyrana said nothing. Then, almost reluctantly, she nodded. "Curious. Perhaps humans are not as weak as our scholars claimed. Perhaps there is more to your species than I realized." The day ended with Ethan escorted back to his quarters aboard the human ship. As he walked through the palace gardens, he noticed the Zetharians' attention to detail and beauty. Every plant, every pathway, every reflective pool seemed designed for perfection. Yet, in their obsession with appearances, they revealed their arrogance. Ethan sat in his quarters reviewing his notes. Zetheria was proud, advanced, and sophisticated. The princess was intelligent, cunning, and sharp-tongued. But she underestimated humans. She underestimated patience, careful observation, and the quiet strength of a human mind. Tomorrow would bring further tests, negotiations, alliances, and challenges that would require more than words. Ethan knew he could not rely on charm or flattery. Humans earned respect through action, through thought, and through understanding. As night fell over Zetheria, the city shimmered under twin moons. Ethan gazed at the glowing towers and hovering platforms. The challenge of the young alien royal had begun, but he was ready. In the quiet of his quarters, he thought of the insult from earlier. Most species would have reacted angrily, but humans did not need to respond immediately. They had time, patience, and intelligence. They would act when the moment was right. The first day on Zetheria had proven one thing. Humans were underestimated. And underestimated humans, Ethan knew, were often the most dangerous. The morning air on Zetheria was cool and electric, carrying a faint hum of energy from the hovering city below. Ethan Carter walked through the palace corridors, his steps steady and calm. Today would test him in ways no ceremony or polite conversation had. Princess Lyrana had prepared a personal challenge, one meant to humiliate or provoke him, but Ethan did not fear humiliation. Humans knew that quiet observation and careful action often achieved more than anger ever could. The palace attendants led him into a vast audience chamber, larger than any hall he had seen so far. The walls shimmered with holographic displays of Zetheria's history, trade, and military might. Nobles filled the seats, their eyes gleaming with curiosity and anticipation. They all knew what was about to happen. Lyrana would insult the human, and the human would either falter or respond. Princess Lairana stood at the center of the chamber, radiant in her silver-blue robes. Her eyes glowed with intensity as she scanned the room. She turned her gaze toward Ethan, a faint smirk playing across her lips. "Human," she said, her voice dripping with amusement. "Today, you will demonstrate why humans should be considered a worthy species, or why your kind is foolish enough to believe it." Ethan inclined his head slightly. "I will do my best to represent humanity, Your Highness." Lairana laughed softly. The sound carried through the hall, and some nobles whispered among themselves. "Your best?" she said. "Your best is fragile. Tell me, human, how does your kind survive against threats far stronger than yourselves? How do you manage without the advanced technology, training, or centuries of experience that Zetherians possess?" The nobles waited for a response, certain that Ethan would stumble. They leaned forward, eager to see the human falter. But Ethan did not react immediately. Instead, he studied Lairana carefully, noting the rhythm of her speech, the way her body moved, the subtle shifts in her expression when she expected anger. Finally, he spoke, calm and deliberate. "Strength is not always measured in power, Your Highness. Humans survive because we adapt, because we think, because we work together. We do not need to show our power at every moment. We act when it matters, and our actions speak louder than words or appearances." A hush fell over the chamber. The nobles were unsettled. Few had expected a human to respond without anger, without arrogance. Lairana's eyes narrowed slightly. She had underestimated him. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only Ethan could hear. "Clever words, human. But words will not protect. You and the galaxy turns against your fragile species? Do you truly believe your kind can compete with us?" Ethan met her gaze steadily. "I do not claim we are invincible, but humans do not compete by mimicking others. We use our minds, our resilience, and our ability to adapt. These qualities have kept us alive when stronger species failed, and they will continue to serve us well." The princess's smirk faltered for a moment. She had expected fear or anger, not quiet confidence. The nobles shifted uneasily. Ethan's calm presence, his refusal to be provoked, unsettled them. Lairana's voice rose again, addressing the assembly. "Behold a human who does not tremble, a species that believes it can stand among the great civilizations of the galaxy. Surely you see how foolish this is." The chamber was silent. Ethan did not respond. He simply stood, observing. The silence spoke louder than any words could. By refusing to rise to her insults, he demonstrated a kind of strength unfamiliar to the Zetherians. After a long moment, Lairana signaled for the nobles to disperse. The crowd moved reluctantly, murmuring about the human's audacity. Ethan remained where he was, his posture calm and unyielding. Finally, Lairana turned to him, her eyes glowing brighter than before. "You are different," she said softly, almost curiously. "Most species crumble under scrutiny. Most respond to insult with anger or retreat. Yet here you stand, calm, measured, unafraid. Why do you not respond as others do?" Ethan inclined, his head slightly. "Because humans understand the value of silence. Not every insult requires a reply. Not every provocation needs to be answered. Sometimes the most powerful action is in restraint." The princess studied him closely, her expression unreadable. She realized that her attempts to humiliate him had failed. More than that, she felt a flicker of curiosity. Humans were not like any species she had encountered. They were unpredictable, patient, and strong in ways Zetherians did not anticipate. Without another word, Ethan turned and walked toward the palace exit. He did not bow, he did not argue, he simply left. The attendants were shocked, unsure how to react. The nobles whispered among themselves, astonished that a human had dared to ignore the princess. Lyrana's eyes followed him, a mixture of irritation and intrigue on her face. Outside, the city spread below him, bright and alive. Ethan breathed deeply, feeling the hum of the energy currents in the air. He had observed enough for now. Words had their place, but actions mattered more. He would not waste energy on arguments or insults. He would act, and his actions would show the Zetharians the quiet strength of humanity. Back on his ship, Ethan contacted his team. Begin analysis of palace systems, trade networks, and security protocols, he instructed. We are here to negotiate, but we must understand the landscape first. Observation is the key. His team worked efficiently, scanning and analyzing, reporting their findings. Ethan reviewed the data carefully, noting patterns in Zetharian, trade routes, energy distribution, and political alliances. He saw opportunities that the Zetharians themselves seemed unaware of, opportunities that humans could use to gain leverage without confrontation. Meanwhile, word of Ethan's behavior spread through the palace. Nobles spoke in hushed tones about the human who had ignored the royal insult, who had left without a word. Lyrana's advisors warned her that this human might be dangerous in ways she could not yet comprehend. She felt a mixture of frustration and fascination. For the first time, someone had met her pride with calm intelligence rather than fear or anger. That evening, Ethan walked through the gardens surrounding the palace. The plants glowed faintly with energy, and the fountains shimmered in iridescent colors. He noted the beauty and precision, but also the overconfidence that came with it. Zetheria relied heavily on appearances and ceremony, and that reliance revealed weaknesses. Ethan thought about the princess. Lyrana was intelligent, yes, but she underestimated humans. Her insults, her attempts to provoke, had no effect on him. Humans did not need to fight every battle immediately. They observed, learned, and acted when the moment was right. In his quarters aboard the ship, Ethan prepared for the next phase of his mission. He would not confront Lyrana directly. He would use observation, intelligence, and careful strategy to navigate the complex web of Zetharian politics. Humans had survived by thinking, adapting, and acting decisively. That was their strength. Night fell over Zetheria, and the twin moons rose, casting silver light over the floating city. Ethan looked out at the towers and lights, feeling a quiet sense of anticipation. The challenge had begun, and the princess had underestimated him. That was Zetheria's first mistake. Tomorrow, negotiations would begin in earnest. Ethan would continue to observe, to gather information, and to identify opportunities. The Zetharians expected conflict, but humans did not fight on their terms. They acted according to their own intelligence and strategy. In the quiet of the night, Ethan reflected on the events of the day. Lyrana's insults had not shaken him. They had only strengthened his resolve. Humans did not need to argue or shout to prove their worth. Their strength lay in their minds, their patience, and their ability to act when the moment was right. And so, as the city shimmered beneath the twin moons, Ethan prepared. The silent human had already begun to change Zetheria's perception. The princess had expected weakness. Instead, she had met quiet confidence, observation, and intelligence. Humans were underestimated, as always, and underestimated humans were the most dangerous. The next morning, Zetheria's skies were alive with light. Hovering platforms moved smoothly between the tall towers, and distant energy currents shimmered faintly in the atmosphere. Ethan Carter stepped out onto the observation deck of his ship, scanning the city below. He had spent the night reviewing all the data collected about the palace, trade networks, and the hidden patterns in Zetharian politics. Today, he would begin using that knowledge, not with anger or confrontation, but with careful intelligence. His first move was subtle. Instead of heading immediately to the palace, Ethan contacted minor noble factions who had long felt overshadowed by Lyrana's authority. Using carefully chosen words, he explained potential trade opportunities, emphasizing mutual benefit and efficiency. He avoided any mention of conflict or criticism. Humans, he knew, did not need to challenge pride with insults. They acted quietly and strategically. Meanwhile, Lyrana observed him from the palace balcony. She had been told by her advisors that the human was unpredictable, but even they could not explain his calm and deliberate nature. "What is he doing now?" she muttered to herself. "He left without insult, ignored my words, and yet something is changing. Something subtle." Ethan's negotiations were precise. He highlighted areas where minor nobles could gain influence through collaboration with humans. He offered technical insights into energy crystal distribution and trade routes that Zetheria had overlooked. By the time Lyrana's officials learned of it, alliances were already forming, quietly, without public announcement. Back in the palace, Lyrana called a meeting with her advisors. "This human, he is clever in ways we did not expect," she said, her glowing eyes narrowing. "He does not argue, he does not retaliate, yet he is gaining influence. How can a species so young, so small, achieve this?" Her advisors shuffled nervously. "Your Highness, humans have always been underestimated. But this one, he acts unlike any human we have observed. He uses patience, observation, and knowledge. It is unusual, yes, but effective." Lyrana's expression darkened. She had expected insult and weakness. Instead, she was seeing competence and influence. For the first time, she felt curiosity about humans, tinged with frustration. Later, Ethan attended a formal discussion with Lyrana and a select group of nobles. The topic was energy distribution, the foundation of Zetherian trade power. Lyrana began the meeting as always, her tone sharp and critical. "Human, explain why we should even consider your suggestions. Zetheria has perfected energy trade for centuries. Your species is young and untested." Ethan listened carefully. He spoke slowly, clearly, highlighting gaps in efficiency he had observed. He suggested minor adjustments that would increase overall production without threatening the royal authority. He did not frame his suggestions as criticism, but as opportunities for mutual benefit. The nobles whispered among themselves. The subtlety of his proposals, combined with his calm demeanor, drew attention. Lyrana's eyes followed him, a mixture of irritation and intrigue. For the first time, she saw a human who could influence outcomes without force, without arrogance, without insult. When the meeting ended, Lyrana approached him privately. "You are unlike any human I have met," she said softly. "You do not respond to provocation, yet your ideas gain attention. How do you accomplish this?" Ethan inclined his head politely. "Your Highness, humans understand that influence comes not from force or anger, but from intelligence, observation, and careful action. Words can open doors, but results keep them open." Lyrana considered his words. She realized that her previous assumptions about humans had been incomplete. They were not weak nor fragile. They were strategic, patient, and capable of subtle, yet powerful influence. Over the next few days, Ethan continued his quiet work. He visited energy processing centers, observed trade routes, and met with influential merchants. Everywhere he went, he acted with humility and precision. He did not boast, he did not argue. He simply presented ideas, shared knowledge, and let results speak for themselves. Lyrana watched from the palace as the human's influence grew among the minor nobles and merchants. She could see that he had changed the balance of opinion subtly, without a single public confrontation. For a species she had considered insignificant, this was impressive. One afternoon, Lyrana called him to the palace gardens. The plants glowed softly, and small streams shimmered with energy. "Human," she said, her voice quieter than usual. "You have accomplished much without raising your voice. You have gained influence among those who serve me, and you have done so without confrontation. Explain this to me. Why do humans act this way?" Ethan walked beside her, his posture relaxed but confident. "Humans value results over appearances. We understand that patience and observation often achieve what anger and pride cannot. We do not seek to dominate through words or fear. We seek understanding, and we act at the right moment. This has allowed our species to survive and thrive." Lyrana's eyes glowed brighter, reflecting a mix of fascination and respect. "I did not expect this from a species I considered weak. You have proven me wrong, human. I see now that your kind is more formidable than I imagined." Ethan inclined his head slightly. "Thank you, Your Highness. Humans do not seek praise. We act with purpose, and we learn from observation. Respect and trust are earned, not demanded." For the first time, Lyrana felt a sense of humility, not in weakness, but in understanding. Humans were different from any species she had known. They did not seek to impress with grandeur or ceremony. They acted with intelligence, patience, and foresight. That evening, the palace advisors convened again. "Your Highness," one said, "the human continues to gain influence quietly. His presence changes the dynamics of our court without a single public argument. We should pay attention." Lyrana nodded slowly. "I have noticed. It seems we have underestimated humans. Perhaps it is time to reconsider our assumptions about their strength and intelligence." Meanwhile, Ethan prepared for the next stage of his mission: formal negotiations over the energy crystals. He had learned enough about Zetherian systems, alliances, and weaknesses to act strategically. He did not need to confront Lyrana or her nobles directly. He would use intelligence, observation, and careful action to secure the results Earth needed. As he looked out over the glowing city, he felt a quiet sense of purpose. Humans did not need to shout or argue to achieve their goals. They had patience, intelligence, and the ability to act decisively when the moment was right. That was their strength, and Zetheria was beginning to see it. Lyrana, standing on her balcony, watched the human move through the city with quiet confidence. She could not deny the effectiveness of his methods. He had changed perceptions subtly, without confrontation, without anger, without pride. He had shown that humans were formidable in ways Zetherians had never expected. And as night fell over the city, Ethan prepared for the final steps of his mission. The trade negotiations would begin soon, and the outcome would demonstrate once more that humans acted differently, but effectively. They did not need to fight with words or pride. They acted with intelligence, patience, and purpose. Lyrana's pride had been challenged, but it was not broken. Instead, it was reshaped by curiosity and respect. Humans were different, yes, but perhaps that difference was a strength she could learn from. The city of Zetheria shimmered under twin moons, lights reflecting off towers and floating platforms. The palace hummed with quiet energy. And in the midst of it all, Ethan Carter moved with purpose, calm and observant, ready to continue showing the Zetherians that humans were underestimated and dangerous in ways they could not yet comprehend. The sun rose slowly over Zetheria, casting long shadows across the floating city. Ethan Carter stood on the observation deck of his ship, reviewing his notes one last time before the formal negotiations began. Today would be the day that humans would demonstrate not through arrogance or force, but through intelligence, patience, and strategy, that they were a species to be respected. He stepped into the palace halls, which glimmered in the morning light. Nobles and officials gathered, their eyes fixed on him. Princess Lyrana waited at the center, her posture proud, but her expression more thoughtful than he had seen before. The air hummed with quiet tension. "You are punctual, human," she said, her voice firm. "I hope you have come prepared to justify your species' worthiness once again." Ethan bowed slightly, his calm demeanor unshaken. We are prepared to discuss a partnership, Your Highness, not to justify ourselves, but to show how cooperation can benefit both our worlds. Lyrana's eyes narrowed slightly. Words are easy. Results are harder. Show us the benefits you speak of. Ethan activated his holotable, displaying diagrams of energy crystal distribution, trade routes, and potential collaboration strategies. He explained, clearly and simply, how humans could improve efficiency without threatening Zetherian control, how Earth could supply advanced technology in exchange for crystals, and how minor nobles and merchants could gain influence while strengthening the kingdom. The nobles whispered among themselves. They had expected arrogance or pleading. Instead, they saw careful planning, intelligence, and strategy. Ethan's calm explanation highlighted gaps in Zetherian efficiency, but in a way that made it seem like an opportunity rather than criticism. Lyrana watched closely. For weeks, she had observed him, and she now realized the human was not just clever, he was effective. His calmness and foresight had already begun shifting influence among her nobles, quietly and subtly. "Human," she said finally, "you have demonstrated skill in observation, negotiation, and planning. You speak of cooperation and benefit. Why should Zetheria trust a species we have never truly known?" Ethan met her gaze steadily. "Your Highness, humans earn trust. Through action, not words alone. We do not seek to dominate, we seek to collaborate. What we offer is proof through our efforts, not promises." Lyrana considered his words. She thought of the last days, the calm demeanor in the face of insult, the quiet observation of the palace and its people, the subtle influence he had already achieved among minor nobles. She realized that humans were different, not weak, not fragile, but clever, patient, and strong in ways Zetherians often overlooked. "Very well," she said, her tone measured. "We will begin formal negotiations. But understand this, human. One misstep, and the consequences will be severe." Ethan nodded. "Understood, Your Highness." The negotiations were long but orderly. Ethan presented his proposals with clarity and precision, always highlighting mutual benefit and respect for Zetherian authority. He avoided confrontation, instead demonstrating through logic and evidence why collaboration was advantageous. The minor nobles and merchants, many of whom had quietly aligned with Ethan, spoke in his favor. They emphasized efficiency, growth, and the opportunities humans brought. Lyrana noticed that her influence alone could not counter the subtle shift in opinion he had created. By evening, the preliminary trade agreement was ready. Zetheria would provide energy crystals to Earth, and in return, humans would supply advanced technology, logistical support, and guidance on resource management. The minor nobles gained influence, and the kingdom's trade efficiency improved. Lyrana approached Ethan privately, her eyes glowing softly. "You have done what I did not think possible," she admitted. "Without anger, without confrontation, you have achieved results. Humans are impressive." Ethan inclined his head slightly. "Thank you, Your Highness. Humans act with patience, observation, and careful planning. We do not need to dominate through words or pride. We act when the moment is right." She studied him, her curiosity growing. "I misjudged your species. You are not weak, not fragile, but resilient and clever. I see now that our previous assumptions about humans were wrong." Ethan smiled faintly. "It is easy to underestimate a species you do not fully understand. But patience, intelligence, and action often speak louder than arrogance or insult." Lyrana nodded, a new respect forming in her eyes. "I will remember this, human. You have changed my view of humanity. Perhaps we can learn from each other, rather than oppose one another." Ethan remained humble. "Cooperation, not competition, benefits all, Your Highness." Humans believe in understanding and learning. We do not act out of pride. We act out of purpose. That evening, the palace celebrated the successful negotiations. Nobles and merchants acknowledged the humans' contributions, and the atmosphere was one of cautious optimism. Lyrana watched Ethan move through the gathering quietly, observing and listening, never boasting, never drawing attention to himself. She realized that humans' quiet confidence was different from the Zetherian approach. Zetherians relied on ceremony, status, and appearances. Humans relied on intelligence, patience, and results. The difference was subtle but powerful. Later, Lyrana approached Ethan once more, her tone softer now. "Human, you have earned my respect, not through words or arrogance, but through intelligence, action, and patience. I underestimated you, and I will not make that mistake again." Ethan bowed slightly, his calm demeanor unchanged. "Thank you, Your Highness. Humans do not seek respect. We earn it through our actions." Lyrana smiled faintly, a gesture she rarely made. "Then let this be the beginning of understanding between our species. Perhaps humans are not just survivors, but equals in strategy, foresight, and resilience." Ethan turned toward the balcony, gazing at the city below. The twin moons rose, casting silver light over the towers and floating platforms. Zetheria shimmered with energy, and he felt a quiet satisfaction. The mission was complete, not through confrontation, but through observation, intelligence, and careful action. The princess stood beside him, silent for a moment, reflecting. She had insulted him, expected weakness, and yet he had turned that moment into an opportunity. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable, patient, and formidable in ways that often went unnoticed until it was too late. Ethan looked out over the city, thinking of Earth and the future. Humans did not need to dominate. Through pride or anger, they acted with purpose, intelligence, and foresight. And now, Zetheria had learned the same lesson, quietly but unmistakably. As the night deepened, the palace hummed with quiet life. The trade agreement would bring new strength to Earth and opportunity to Zetheria. Minor nobles gained influence. The kingdom's efficiency improved, and the young princess had a new perspective on humanity. Ethan finally returned to his ship. The stars above Zetheria were bright, and the galaxy seemed full of possibility. Humans were underestimated as always, but underestimated humans were often the most powerful. Princess Lyrana watched him depart, her glowing eyes thoughtful. She had expected confrontation, pride, and arrogance, but she had found something else: intelligence, patience, and quiet strength. For the first time, she considered the humans as not just a young species, but a species worth respecting. Ethan did not boast, did not speak of victory. He had completed his mission the way humans often did, with calm observation, careful strategy, and decisive action when it mattered most. He had shown that words were not always needed, that silence could be powerful, and that humans, underestimated for so long, could achieve greatness in ways others could not predict. The twin moons reflected off his ship as it lifted from Zetheria's surface. Ethan Carter looked ahead to the stars, knowing that this mission had proven one thing: humanity was patient, intelligent, and capable of quiet, decisive influence. And the galaxy, Lyrana included, would never see them the same way again. The story of insult, patience, and strategic action had ended. Humans had won respect, not through shouting, not through pride, but through intelligence, observation, and careful, deliberate action. Zetheria had learned the lesson. Underestimate humans at your own peril. And somewhere, in the quiet of the stars, Ethan smiled. The galaxy had only just begun to see the true strength of humanity.